Stop us on.
Can you talk so we can make sure? It doesn't, but it is a cloud. It does it to the cloud, I promise. Can you say something, Jim, so we can make sure we can hear you?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yay!
Can you hear me now? Thank you. All right.
So now it's 6:07, and I think we ought to call the meeting to order. Okay. All right.
There's
Bacon. All right. We're good. Okay. Now you want a motion to adjourn?
We don't have it. We need an election of officers. We did put Pledge of Allegiance on the
Pledge of Allegiance is next. Everyone, please rise. Lisa, why don't you lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we have the election of officers. Start with the chair.
I'll nominate Joan Beely.
Next.
Sitting at the end of the table.
Well, I look at it as she's been involved with the plan of conservation and development from the beginning. She's chairs planning and zoning. To me, it's just a natural fit. But that's just my opinion. I'm just throwing it out there.
Second.
Oh, we have a second. So we have any other nominations for the chair? I would ask the secretary to cast one vote, but I guess all those in favor. Aye. Those opposed, aye.
You can always not accept the out nomination.
I know, but then we'd be here all night. So nominations for the vice chair. I look for nominations for the vice chair. Sandy, since you nominated me, maybe I can nominate you. I nominate Sandy Coppola for vice chair. So I have a second.
Second.
Oh, thank you, John. Further discussion. Any other nominations? And all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? So moved. And nomination for secretary. I don't need you agree. Nomination for secretary.
Right.
Are you?
Not necessary. I have a secretary for my commission.
So Lisa is has been hired as recording secretary, so the secretary is will really be the function will be performing if we need something signed by the secretary for the commission or the committee.
Well, I'm used to doing for the water, so
I'll second.
I'll nominate this gentleman right here.
Okay, the gentleman in blue.
Second.
We have a nomination.
Who was the second? I was
Sandy is the second for the discussion. Any other nominations? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. Okay, so we have the executive boards. Now we have the review of the plan of conservation and development, affordable housing plan, and the implementation plans. These we all received our copies today. And I know that all of you have basically worked on it within your level of expertise. Inland wetlands, water commission, conservation, I believe that one, yeah. And so this gives us a great chance to actually work with each other and work outside of our realities and to hopefully learn a little bit more as we look to each of you serving as that level of expertise to help us out and help us make the proper decisions to help us to move the town forward.
Yeah, I was involved in it a while back where it was a little work on, we did a little work on it and we're supposed to continue working on it and then COVID there.
Yeah.
And it just shut us all down.
Mm-hmm.
And the plan of conservation just came out.
Yeah.
Because we ended up not having any more work, so.
Well, hopefully we can kind of iron some stuff out. I think it's also, because it's a document that's a working document, but it's actually a guideline for the town. And, I think probably the town council is looking for us to have quarterly meetings to figure out, where everybody is within, the implementation plan, and if we have any questions or concerns that come to us from our commissions or from outside sources, it'll give us a chance to work and fine tune their document and maybe find some answers out as well. Maureen, am I missing anything?
No, I'm not sure everyone has been as involved on their commissions as maybe some of the chairs or some of their staff liaisons were. So just kind of want to remind everybody or explain how the POCD is set up if you haven't been really taken much of a look at it yet. You do all have your print copies, and let me just
Sorry, Mike.
get one to this.
Alright. Thanks for feeling me out.
Oh, jeez. This doesn't sound good. The word bail.
No.
I got stuck someplace,
He got locked into fairgrounds.
You're in the fair?
What was after?
Oh, I have
I was trying
Trying to get those free rides, huh?
Yeah, I was trying to explain to Peter Whitey, or anybody last.
Oh, jeez.
Someone broke in and tried to start the big barn on fire.
What? When did that happen?
2 weeks ago.
They broke in and tried to burn the barn down?
The
The cattle barn? Did they,
No damage, no serious.
is there any cameras or anything that caused,
Nothing that's been.
nothing that you're gonna speak of? Okay, that's okay.
Well, nothing, they can't.
Yeah,
Stay on track.
Yeah, we're not, they're recording this, so.
yeah, all right,
So,
anyway.
So just going back to the plan of conservation development, so over the last several years, 2 to 3 years, the planning and zoning commission engaged with FHI studios, with a consultant from there to help us draft and write the report, as well as conduct public meetings, conduct work sessions with different boards and commissions, as well as with the staffs in different departments for the town. And we had some pretty successful topical meetings, as well as diving further in on certain topic areas. For instance, Commissioner LaRoche mentioned working very closely with Ray, the water control director, coordinator, Ray, manager, and he, Ray Gerema.
Yeah.
And he, you know, a lot of the things about the infrastructure there and what is the plan, and relating to also capital improvements that the town will happen. So we brought those things in to the writing of the plan of conservation development.
yes, there's an update that's been done between Jim Mahoney and Ray.
Yeah, we work on it quite regularly, and if you go to the online version of the plan of conservation development, it is posted on the website. The online version, you'll see, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is the topic areas are each color coded in the plan, and you can actually click on the color code on the online version and skip to that section. So while you all have the paper copies, it's also interacting. If you're looking for something, you might find it easier to go online so you can actually find the page, but I did throw out little tabs if anybody has anything specific they want to tab today. Use a sticky note. For instance, orange is housing, and housing I call out specifically because the implementation plan for the POCD, which I'll talk about in a second, also incorporates the implementation plan or the affordable housing plan that the town developed and adopted in 2022. Kind of is the precursor with FHI to the work on the plan of conservation and development, because all towns are mandated to also have an affordable housing plan in place and work on updating that every 5 years. The conservation development is 10 years, although it can be updated throughout as a living document if there needs to be a change made to the plan, the planning and zoning commission can use that. The implementation plan, so you have the plan of conservation and development. It lays out who we are as a town, where the town is headed, and the goals for the town over a 10-year period. The implementation plan is an appendix at the end, and that has for each topic area the goal, the strategy to achieve that goal, and prioritizing it. And that's the kind of dotted pages towards the back. And those areas have each been prioritized in the adoption of the plan, based on feedback, information, and research. So, with the Planning and Zoning Commission adopting it in this format. The Affordable Housing Plan also had an implementation plan, and the Town Council, with the recommendations made in the POCD, just updated that implementation plan this fall. So that has been incorporated, so the Affordable Housing Plan and the POCD should work in harmony with their goals. With regard to the house. If you choose any one of the pages in the implementation summary, you'll see a lead entity. That's where basically this committee comes in. The lead entity might be, for instance, the Park and Recs department or commission, Parks and Rec Commission, in which case it's probably something the Parks and Rec Commission is working on, has the goal, is otherwise working on, and with the help of the liaison, this committee will help with the communication to all the other the other boards, commissions in the town, at least the ones that are represented in this room, so that they can work in harmony and not against each other. You need to have one commission, gung ho on something, somebody else on a different project that then couldn't be done together because they're the property, they're the same monies, whatever. And then they're prioritized as to level. Is it something we need to work on immediately? We just had a couple of things we needed to work on immediately with the Planning and Zoning Commission to change our zoning regulations in order to comply with new legislation. So those were high priority, had to be done right on top. And as we work towards different goals, they've been prioritized, and many of them are a result of the survey and the topical research and studies in writing the POCD that we that when the Plan of Conservation and Development Advisory Committee was working on the document, prioritized it as, yeah, the town wants to get there, but something else is important when you look at the big picture. So I think that probably covers most of that right now, as far as how it's laid out and where we're headed with it. And I think the purpose of most of you being here, some of you have been on this committee before. After the 2003 plan, we had an implementation committee that met quarterly. The town council appointed a committee and kept the plan going. After the 2013 plan, the implementation committee was never formed to move forward. However, most of the boards and commissions and or the Planning and Zoning Commission did work to, they accomplished the goals of the plan. The TOD is one of those things. The Newport project, the train station integration, all that. But this is a good and efficient and keeps everybody accountable and on point. I handed out the potential dates that conflict with The meeting calendar, I mentioned it when some of you are already in the room. The blues are the dates we think at least one of your boards or commission meets. So it would be a conflict for you. The goal and the charge that the town council gave us is to have the implementation committee meet quarterly. So 4 times a year. So, you know, it's a matter of determining what this committee's looking into and works with your schedules. I'm gonna throw out there that generally July and August aren't great. So if you move to either figure June and September, you move back to the other months, you know, skip months backwards, that often works. But that's just been my experience with the commissions that I've been liaison to. One suggestion, the Plan of Conservation and Development Advisory Committee met the 4th Thursday of the month. That is a date that you didn't find a conflict, and we also know the recording secretary does not have a conflict. However, that's this committee needs to give you one, because the most representation we get possible. So if everybody can maybe give a little thought to that, so that we could form a calendar by the end of the meeting. And again, if there are conflicts, meeting dates can always be changed, but we are supposed to, all boards, committees, and commissions are supposed to adopt a calendar by the end of this month, or to turn into the town clerk.
So, okay,
Do you have something, please?
I was just gonna say, throw out a suggested month and date for everybody to kind of put their heads around. Yeah.
I think my next question was, does this count as a meeting?
Yes.
So this counts as a meeting. All right,
For
All
this year.
Yeah.
for this year, so,
Yeah, it doesn't have
2023.
to be
Right.
3 months from now.
It's not, it doesn't fall under the.
all right, so, I think, we could probably have our first meeting. It depends on what we wanna tackle, or what we want to address first, but I was thinking maybe we should just go with a January meeting to begin with, and we can choose the last Thursday in January. Which would make it the 25th, and from there, we can go to then you could probably do April. And then, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, April 25th. So I'm thinking January 25th, just for openers. April 25th. And you're saying July and August aren't keen, but we could maybe squeeze one in June 28th, 25th, 27th. And then we would bring us down to perhaps October.
The 24th.
24th. Or the 31st.
31st of Halloween.
Yeah.
No, the 24th would be.
Yep.
Yeah, we work together.
Okay.
4 good
Okay.
dates for me, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, just throwing it out there, but keeping a pattern. Anyone's seeing any conflict? We're away from the Brawl Fair. That's important. We're away from the holidays.
Wait for pretty much the whole summer,
Yeah,
and they spread out pretty nicely.
yeah. I mean, they work for me, but
If you listen, you're gonna get most.
at least it's giving me the thumbs up, so very happy.
Yeah.
Jim, how does that sound with you? Or if
Tony? Jim, are you able to hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you can hear us.
Yes, I'm muted. Yes, that's fine with me.
All right. Anyone else? Guy, Lenny?
I
No?
worked out the best for me was given September, which is.
Oh, yeah, I wanna stay away from that. Early voting, I wish we could skip October, but I just have to figure it out.
I got other stuff to do with other schedule.
Yeah. Well, I just tell, I'm to the point where I just tell everyone that Thursdays are terrible for me. Please don't don't talk to me on Thursdays.
And we will, most likely be continuing the hybrid format, so, you know, joining remotely is always an option as well.
Yep.
There should be an option, we're gonna assume that's gonna continue to be an option.
Now, do we need a motion to accept the calendar as suggested?
I make a motion to accept the POCD implementation committee calendar for 2024 with the following dates. Thursday, January 25th, Thursday, April 25th, Thursday, June 27th, and Thursday, October 24th, all in 2024.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Further discussion, questions, concerns? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So thank you. Oh, thank you. All right.
It will be
Annette.
very pleased.
All right.
That's for the end of the year.
Yes. So I mean, we have, I mean, this is just the initial meeting, so we're just sort of getting our feet wet here, I know. Are there any questions? Yeah, God.
I was just thinking, could we take a couple of minutes and just introduce ourselves? If we're gonna, you know,
We'll start with you, Guy.
Guy Hoffman, Vice Chair of Conservation Commission.
Lucas Van Zandt, Parks and Rec.
Lenny Tubbs, Vice Chair of Zoning Board of Appeals.
Oh, there you go.
One of them.
You want another question, Lenny?
It's been a day, it's okay.
I can relate to that.
Peter Neiman, Chairman of Penny Wetlands.
I'm Joe Bailey, I'm the planning and zoning. City Board Town Council.
And John Dyke, Historic District.
Bruce LaRoche, Chair of Water Control.
So then, I'm Maureen Juicy, the staff liaison, and I'm the town planner.
Online, Jim Mahoney. Advocate extraordinaire.
In Maine.
Jim Mahoney, Economic Development Coordinator, remote.
And then we have Lisa Vanessa, the recording secretary, and for the record, Ed Agnesarian is,
Economic development.
from Economic Development Commission chair? No,
No.
not
No,
I think
but
so.
he's the vice chair.
Seriously.
You may be
But
vice
he,
chair.
and he's not able to attend at this time.
Any other questions?
I have a question, Maureen, I don't know if this pertains to it, you want to talk about, Maureen, is any of our housing, low income, affordable housing, is any of that, as our money we get from the state, is any of that based on the money we get from the state to keep a certain percentage? That's something we should be aware of.
I'm not sure I'm following.
There is a state law that's regarding that a certain amount of your zoning should be having, I think it's 5% or 10%.
10%.
We're right on that
But
board.
if the money we're getting from the state for grants, is that affected by being below?
Are grants affected by our inability, or is it only the appeals?
No, it's just the appeals.
Okay, so, what
Sorry, grant money is.
we commonly talk about as 830G,
Right.
which is the Affordable Housing Appeals Act. And, that the town, if they've met 10%, which is the threshold that the state has on each town to meet, then we are exempt from the ability for a developer to come in and propose an affordable housing application upon us, which doesn't need to meet the other zoning requirements. But as far as we're aware, not at least, I mean, Jim does most of our grant, or many of our grant applications, a good portion of them, and just indicated that, you know, not aware that that is a factor.
So no money,
in the
or
grant.
any type of
Doesn't
financial
seem
help
so.
from the state is
Does not seem so.
Okay.
Sometimes you get involved.
Never
with
say
state
never, but I'm not aware of, we're not aware of that grant at this time.
Well, I thought there was some area where, you know, if you're not meeting it, you're gonna get less funding for different projects, things like that.
I'm not aware of it working that way.
I'm not aware of it either.
Yeah.
I know that we're right on the borderline of that 10%.
Yeah. Well,
So Jim does keep regular tabs on those numbers. I lose them in my brain. I have to write those things down. And I don't have it in front of me, but we're almost we're well in the 8%. Did lose some of our affordable housing over the last count. One of the main reasons for losing affordable housing counts throughout the region has been that funding, when people have CHFA loans and financing for affordable units, for affordable housing for their mortgages, those count. And those loans haven't been given out, then those houses fall off the roll. Then we also have the deed restricted affordable housing that stay in anywhere from 20 to 40 years. We have recently lost some of those to having attritioned out. They were approved in the 90s. And they were for 20 years. Now the affordable housing legislation is 40 years. So that's been extended. And the Planning and Zoning Commission has been requesting even longer periods and is looking to have the regulations require a longer period. And that's one of the things we have in the plans is to do.
Yeah, and just to build on that, because I don't know if you're all aware, is that you can have something that's approved as an affordable housing development, and say you have 5 houses within that 25 or whatever that are affordable, but they only stay affordable so long. And then after a while they sunset. So you could be living in that house for 25 years and it only stays for 30 years, let's say, as affordable. After you get that 30 years, you're free to go with the market value on that home. And when you think about it, because the affordability not only affects the cost of the housing going in, but it also, I believe, and Jim, I don't know if they follow through. Wasn't there originally when affordable housing came in, there was a tax break that went on to the property as well?
Not that I'm aware of on the single, well, not on the single families, and I can say that, like, for all the multifamilies, we have a lot, again, a lot of deed restricted multifamilies like Metros projects, etc. We did not do any tax abatement on any of those. The housing authority projects, obviously, those have preferential tax treatment, but not the others.
Okay, all right. Well, it's just that we're on planning and zoning, we're trying to push for more years, because what will happen, of course, is that you have developers developing housing projects and they're not always affordable, but it keeps offsetting the numbers. And then if some of them can tumble off of that affordability list, it makes it suppresses our numbers down. So then the demand for us to have more affordable. So we're kind of reaching to see if we can maintain that affordability on the homes in perpetuity. Actually, we would like it to go like 100 years, so that we are constantly under pressure by the state to build more affordable housing.
I had a question. So do we know what the statistics are about how much of our affordable housing stock is based on like chapter loans versus deed restrictions?
Yeah, we have those numbers.
Okay. Just
I
roughly.
have them right here. Just may have them.
Right,
that's on the chart, right?
I think the chairwoman's concern really is, I mean, it could be tumbling even faster than you realize. I mean, some of these loans are.
I won't be able to sleep tonight.
And that's the thing. It could even be worse than the chairwoman thinks. It's going to go down to 5%. Well, now in the next few years, it's definitely a challenge to even get close to the 10%. Never mind maintain above it.
Yeah. And
I think that probably the biggest concern is how many of these properties are subject to affordable housing loans versus deed restrictions. That's probably the biggest. It's like the biggest link, I think.
Yeah, our biggest category is definitely deed restrictions. I believe it's like, I mean, over 500 units that are deed restricted. Like as Joan said, any new project that is affordable. Planning and zoning puts in requirements for deed restrictions that have to meet the 830G requirements. So, I mean, we're pretty solid, but yeah, and again, this, like the CHFA mortgages was a pretty steady number, but then with the pandemic and the changes to the housing market, and we still had, it was interesting that we had lots of units in town that sold at prices that would have been eligible for CHFA financing, and yet our count went down, as did the count in surrounding towns. So it was really a market thing. But I think the big picture, the other thing to remember is that 10% is based on the most recent census numbers, and actually the 2020 census numbers just came out. So our goal moved up at the same time as, again, the Little River project is coming online with 88 units. So whereas we would have made it, we don't, and we'll still be 51 units short, based on if we keep the same level of CHFA financed and subsidized rentals as we had last year. So we're close, but we're not quite there. And again, just in brief, planning and zoning has approved projects, Knights of Columbus, 550 Berlin Turnpike, that will have many of these additional housing units, but the units don't count until they are constructed and certificates of occupancy are issued.
So you all, I believe in the email I sent with the attachments, this letter was, memo was one of the documents, and in the middle of it kind of explains the affordable housing piece as well, so that you leave the meeting and go, oh, what they say, you can look back at this and look back at the numbers too, because there you can see we have the 8,547 units. We right now, the Deming Ridge, which is the Metro Realty project that's on the east end of Deming Road next to Eversource, is on track to be CO'd. It does have the financing, and it's a project funded in such a way that the entire project will count as affordable, while 30% of those units are actually the ones that are set aside for as affordable units. So 70% will be market rate, 30% will fall into one of the categories of affordability, and they are on track to closely be CO'd by the end of this year or close. Another goal the Planning and Zoning Commission has been maintaining over the last couple of years anyway, is whenever a project comes in that is for housing, has been requesting that the developer at least provide 10% of the units for for as affordable, and deed restrict them, so that we don't fall behind with every new project. Instead, hey, we give us at least the 10%, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has gotten the 20% from several projects. So we have some that are approved, some are even starting construction that are at either 10 or 20%. But every time you have a project that's complete, or subdivision or something that's completely market rate, you're losing 10% of that. You're falling behind again. So those are how those numbers fluctuate so much.
When was the last time we reached the 10%? It wasn't that long ago, was it?
No.
Do you know that? Yeah.
We never made it to 10%. We were at 9.2 or something. That was the closest we got. And they're also, like in the affordable housing plan, if you look at it, we went from like 3 or 4% affordable units to over 9%. So we had made tremendous progress, but it all takes time, and we just didn't get over the finish line. But hopefully you know, another project to get another 1 or 2 projects under our belt, and we'll get there this time.
Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the town exempt from 830G at one point? Was that because of the progress that had been made? Because that's
Yes, there, yes.
the
There's
moratorium. Yeah.
yes, there's you know, if you make, what they say, 2% progress, and it's based on like a point system, you get more points for family units, less points for elderly units, all this business. Okay. So if you make 2% progress based on their formulas, you get a 4-year moratorium. And we got 2 of those as we made progress along the way. So we had 8 years that, you know, we were exempt from 830G, but once our 4-year moratorium expired, we hadn't met the 10%. So we went back into a situation where we were subject to 830G appeals.
We're still in better shape than a majority of towns in the state. Is there some that are way low?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the Berlin is pretty high on those under 10%. We're up at number 3 or 4 at this point, I think, with the new number, right?
yeah, it was 4 or 5. When we get I think with the metro units, we're going to be, you know, 1, 2, 3 closest probably next year.
Yeah, but until you hit 10,
right,
you're not exempt from the application.
Right, is it something we're still looking at as far as the mobile home areas, about possibly looking at those to de-restrict them?
I believe that is something that the town manager's office is continuing to work on that. It hasn't come back to our office yet at this point. Jim, have you been in further conversation about the mobile home counting?
Yeah, I think it's still in the discussion. I mean, I think there's an interest in doing something there, and it's just, you know, they're talking about whether, you know, to de-restrict all the units, or whether, you know, to de-restrict units as they become vacant, and there are some that are vacant now. So it's and, you know, kind of issues of fairness with the existing tenants. So that's still under discussion, but I think you know, town manager is close to making a decision one way or the other to start moving forward with that.
All right, so just for clarification, the mobile home parks that we have existing in town right now are not considered affordable. Is that a true
Correct.
statement?
It's a true statement because they are not deed restricted.
Yeah, but I think we would all concur, thinking about how they define affordability. It would be to our best interest to see if we could get them deed restricted. I think it would really probably push us over the 11%. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, not enough units. There's 16 units there, so
yeah,
sure.
It's not going to get us there, but it's going to help.
Yeah, I guess there. Yeah.
Again, it's so as we've discussed at throughout the affordable housing plan development and the POCD development, we have big A affordable and little a affordable, and the big A affordable are those restricted units that count, and little a affordable means that there's housing and units, and you know, whether it's a 3rd floor walk-up apartment in the attic of a 3-family house, or it's a mobile home that, yeah, it's affordable, but it doesn't.
But
so it is
mobile anything to do with it?
No,
It doesn't.
It doesn't help. No.
Well, I'm saying it doesn't help. That's what I mean.
Right. Yeah, it's not anything that makes it unaffordable.
It might be cheaper than other options.
Right. They're less expensive. Someone can afford to live in them that doesn't make as much money as somebody else, or have as big an income as somebody else. However, or as our median income, and they, you know, can afford to live there, little a, but not affordable with the big A that goes with the statute.
I think one of the most difficult aspects of affordable housing for me is that I have just 2 concerns. I have concern about the seniors who are in town currently, and making affordable housing to let the seniors stay in town. I know of a lot of people who would love to just downsize and get into something manageable for themselves because they don't want to leave the town. They want to stay in the town. They want to turn the house over to the kids or whatever, but they don't want to go far. And sometimes it's kind of hard because they tell me they have to move to Rocky, you know, or they got to go to Cornwall. So, I mean, senior housing is sort of a push for me. But on the other hand, the other end of the spectrum is that I also know that the town is under a tremendous amount of pressure for growth. And I think that this is a concern, and Jim, I think you know this about me and Maureen for sure. I kind of like to safeguard our parks and our wildlife and our recreational areas that we have, our green spaces, because I think it's very unique to Berlin. And, you know, other towns do have it, but other towns have exploded on it. And they've forsaken that sort of wildlife refuge or the parks or the dog parks or whatever, people parks for affordable housing, you know, and I just want to make sure, I know that you folks would understand where I'm coming from. I'm just trying to make sure that we do a balance, or at least that's what my goal is that we balance the housing with care for the seniors, and also to make sure that we're respectful of the properties that the town has and maintain those walking trails and stuff for everyone and open spaces.
I would comment that I think with a lot of the multifamily projects that have been approved, you know, for example, Metro's projects and on Deming Road, et cetera, and, you know, Sage Pond Place, et cetera. I think, you know, and then the plan, you know, and back in earlier plans, they talk about, you know, kind of placing multifamily housing at appropriate locations, not in the middle of a single family residential neighborhood. So I think where we've had, you know, where we've worked with developers or where the Planning and Zoning Commission has had discretion, you know, we have a lot of our affordable housing is well placed in terms of the community planning. I think the risk, as we're talking about, is with 830G, as a developer can come in any place and propose a development at much greater density than the surrounding area or whatever the case might be. And it might be not as consistent with our plan. So that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, excellent, Jim.
I do want to, on that note of the importance of the resources the town has, just generally called them resources, but the pink section is the cultural resources, and it was one of the topical meetings and responses to the survey when the plan of conservation and development was being developed, that we did have some of the greatest participation. Yeah. And those meetings were those that had a higher attendance rate than some of the other meetings that were held topical meeting wise. And so therefore, and that translates to some of the priorities that are listed, as well as at the beginning of the POCD, there's the mission statement for the POCD, and that was developed and tweaked over time by the advisory committee as they worked through the plan recommendations. So I think it speaks to that and the pride that the town of Berlin has in its resources, including the conservation areas, the geographic features, as well as the historic history of the town and agricultural. So, and we'd like to be able to take up on this committee. Something else occurred to me while we were talking, and I mentioned it earlier. The POCD advisory committee, all their meetings were hybrid as well. And they are on the town's YouTube channel. So if there was a topic or a time period, and including the topic meetings, including the public sessions, the public participation session, all meetings are open to the public, of course. But those are all online too. So the communication committee and or if you get any questions, they're there for reference forever. At least at this point, forever. You know, we don't want floppy disks anymore, or low floppy disks anymore.
No.
No, right. We don't even need that.
So is there homework for the next session? Is there a goal for what you want people to prepare for the next session or something? Is there a topic that's going to be discussed specifically, or
I think it's gonna be important for, and Jim, please weigh in, because we've been involved in the implementation committee and with the town long enough to have done that more. But I think it's important that each of you as liaisons to your boards and commissions, you know, look through the goals that your commission that are where you're either the lead entity or a partner entity at the very at a minimum, and look at those and start those conversations for that ability, so that we can have the reporting back and forth between the POC document and each of the boards and commissions, so that the implementation plan can continue to be alive, a living document where we know where the goal sits at any given meeting after every given meeting. Jim, do you have anything?
Well, I think that the like one of the handouts is implementation plan, and what we did with previous committees is what we have given you, which is to provide a status report. And this one's probably not complete. We've kind of reached out to some of the other departments and don't have full answers yet. But as far, I would say a couple things about that. One is we would try to do that at every meeting to provide you with our view of progress. And I think you'll see from that report that we're jumping into acting on a number of items, right? So take a look at that. If there's anything we're missing, let us know. The other thing, as Maureen was talking about priorities, and I think that, you know, if you or your commission has a priority, or if you have a priority other than in your commission, you know, that you think that needs to be advanced, that's not moving along yet, I think you can, you know, you can bring it to the table in this group and hopefully help get it started. I think that, you know, we're all, you know, familiar with the idea that, you know, don't put the plan on the shelf. And I don't think we've done it in the previous plans. I think, you know, for example, if you were interested, we could provide you, like we did a little, you know, evaluation of the status of recommendations on the 2013 plan, which, you know, would show you that a lot of things were acted on, not everything, right? So if you identify things that you don't think we're making enough progress on, that's something we can talk about, certainly. So I would think about that for the next meeting, and, you know, just make sure our status report is complete, but also look at things that you think are important. And I think, you know, if you look at, again, any status report, it's in order to accomplish these things, it's going to take, you know, somebody and the commission level, and the council level, on the staff level, you know, we got to take it personally. We've got to, you know, we've got to be the ones all working together to advance these things. So, you know, I think that's the way we can work together to implement the plan, is to keep our eye on it, try to, you know, bring to the fore items that we think are, you know, are not getting enough attention, and keep on pushing on the items that are starting to move forward.
Or even if you have an idea, or just something that's
Sure.
outside the box, and you want to introduce something, you know, and it may be useful, you know, at whatever level, it's always a good platform to launch that too.
So basically go over our various conditions and our conditions, but also do an overview of other ones. If you have any suggestions, somebody else's condition.
You know, sometimes, you know, you get around and you start talking to people, and you might start down one path and it takes you in a completely different direction. And you discover that, you know, if you did this, you know, this piece here, then maybe this something else would follow.
Yeah, because maybe there's something going on in wetlands that
Yeah.
might affect economic development, say, hey, you know what, this area, we can do something with, maybe economic development's not aware of it, and they can do something with that, so if you get that with the district representative, would be good.
Oh, yeah.
And clearly, does any commission work in a bubble of all by themselves? You're.
I've worked with Mike
touches-
D. Lorenz in conservation, because they work with conservation, the Appalachian Mountain. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, and yeah, you bring in entities that aren't just the boards and commissions in the town, there's other entities that we partner with on a regular basis. And just to go back to, a comment Mr. Neiman made earlier, the question, the plan of conservation development is the document that the state does want, and we're applying for grants to the state. They ask us to demonstrate that it is a goal or it is something in the plan of conservation and development that was thought about as a goal for the town. So it is important to keep it alive, and each board or commission may be going for their funding for anything that they might be looking to accomplish within their budgets, and having the POCD relevant to that is important.
And one of the things we did this time is we referenced the capital improvement program in the POCD. Again, as Maureen said, a lot of state grants, they ask you, for consistency with the POCD, or was it referenced in the POCD? So that gives us more of the projects that the town is looking at, accomplishing and putting them in the POCD format. So that's a plus. And just another thought, is that one of the things that I think people felt about the previous implementation committees was that there's not a lot of forums where all commissions are all sitting around the table and talking to each other. And so this is an opportunity for you to communicate. If there's a project, something's happening at your commission that that you want to bring to the attention of the whole group, it's a good forum to do it.
Right.
Yeah, because it was unclear to me, looking at everything and coming into this meeting, of how we would tackle all of this. I mean, we got 20 pages with a summary of, and put 20 items on each page, 15, it's a huge number. I didn't know if we were going to try to parse this out somehow and try to decide on what we're going to try to accomplish, the highest priority projects, or how you do it. It's a difficult kind of thing to.
I'm not sure I know what the highest priority project is in town. I mean, some people will say growth, and some people will say housing, and some people will say. So I think for me, it's like a balancing act.
Yeah.
I mean, I can try to brainstorm and try to figure out different things that might move the community forward to make it more of the community and not all these, pieces. I'm not sure, because I don't remember having an implementation committee, so I'm not sure how we launch this off and get it all started. But I think roundtabling it is probably a really good idea, and I think we ought to bring our ideas on how to make the community stronger and how to meet some of the goals that we know that have been laid out by state requirement, but how to address those issues without losing our identity as a town, and hold on to the good things that we have, and even make the good things better. So I think I'm not sure how to do it.
Yeah, and even with what we've talked about tonight, with the housing, not necessarily big conservation commission, big item, but it is in a sense, because you almost have to be able to reach that 10% to avoid having something planned, a plan shows up, you know,
Yeah.
in front of P&Z, and something that you can't necessarily stop,
Well,
you know, and
right.
and then it has ramifications across all the commissions.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And everything, so you almost have to take care of that. Have a, you know, put some heads together to figure out how to do that. And then at least that,
Yeah,
then you can kind of control what you'd like to attack and try to accomplish. So that kind of, you don't have control once
well, you know,
a project like that
well,
comes in.
number one, don't shortchange your commission. Because a lot of times when stuff comes before planning and zoning, John Sand, you have a history of it too. If there's a consideration for wetlands, or there's consideration for a strip of the property that should be earmarked for conservation, we're gonna chase it down for you. Because we're gonna try to hang on to the pieces that ultimately matter and may form the development. Now, as far as planning and zoning goes, yeah, I mean, if you have somebody who comes in with an 8-30, I mean, you're kind of at their mercy a little bit, but I prefer to see it as a give and take thing. So I prefer to see it as a bargaining. It's like, they're coming at you this way. They're coming at you for so many houses. So you're just gonna make the houses better, you're gonna make them prettier, and you're gonna make the entrance way. There's other things that you can negotiate with them. So instead of somebody just laying out a plan and saying, I'm gonna do this and you can't stop me. I mean, I think that we have a way of using leverage to make, if we've gotta accept the project, I think we need to accept the project on our level and make the best damn project we can.
Yeah.
And whether that's conservation or wetlands, any or historic aspect to it, we've got to try to work with that. And that's what we're gonna do. Yeah. And knows why, I mean, even with planning and zoning, that's why it's really good we get feedback letters from you guys. And you say, listen, you know, I know you got this project and we're just the conservation of the wetlands commission, but we've got our concerns about this. For economic development, we've got concerns. And those are the things we kind of key in, and we're guided by that. We never disregard that. We look forward to your input.
Well, our commission is probably the first commission to get second project, if it's got wetlands.
Yeah.
Before it comes to you or anybody else, it comes to us.
Yeah.
Now, if we pass it and you deny it, we have to know why.
Oh, we usually give lots of reasons.
Well, believe it or not, that's not true.
You two were the ones to see the lawyers.
Right, and we're going through that right now, and I don't believe what happened with our commission was we passed something, you guys didn't approve it. Why?
Well, if we're talking about a lawsuit that we may be pending, I prefer not to.
Well, it wasn't a lawsuit. There's always one that when it came back to you, you denied it, it came back to us, and we're the ones being sued.
Well, I would prefer to keep that discussion in executive session.
But I'm not gonna discuss more than that,
But I am gonna say that if we denied it for some other reason rather than something that inland wetlands had something.
But it came back to us because of that.
Well, if it's a re-engineering or any aspect of your part of the plan has changed, then we prefer that you address it.
But I think, don't you think it'd be advantageous?
That I override you? No.
No, not overriding, but
It's shortened my life.
give us a reason. If there was a reason pertaining to us.
If we need to work on more communication between the commissions,
We'll do that.
I'll work with Jim and we'll work on more
Yeah.
communication because our
And
council certainly
I think
is
that's
representing both of us.
That goes for us too.
And DEA as well.
Yeah.
We did some of that. It's pending going through you, but it's pending going through him.
Right. Why do we hear
Hear
that?
that. I always wanna know, hey, they have a zoning board,
So
zoning board of
from
appeals says it.
from the governmental standpoint, realize that many of your boards and commissions are, regulatory boards and commissions, and each has its charge as to the factors and the elements that it looks at. And there are rules of order, whether they're legislative or they've been established by the courts, as to who sees what type of applications first. And for instance, while the Planning and Zoning Commission is not charged with making a decision that to completely embrace a wetlands action, it's a recommendation. They're taking that as an advisement to consider in their decision. But the applicant is bound by the wetlands decision, or what they do, they have to comply with that decision. That's regulatory. The Planning and Zoning Commission, just if something's denied in the wetlands, they still are able to make their own decision. And but the wetlands decision is supposed to come first. However, if the application has to be simultaneously occurred first, but the Planning and Zoning Commission can make a decision absent the wetlands decision. That's my understanding from everything I've been taught. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so let's start there. But I'm not down to that. And it's the same with Zoning Board of Appeals. There's certain things that the Planning and Zoning Commission couldn't approve something if it failed to meet a regulation. And the Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with allowing a variance of the regulation. I'm sure there's things that have to do, we rarely, or we don't often see projects that are development projects for Parks and Rec, but you know, I'm sure if there's a conflict with the ordinances or the restrictions within a park, a recreation park as opposed to a conservation park, the Planning and Zoning Commission would have to take that into consideration, but if it's still breaking the park ordinance, it's breaking park ordinance, and whoever's doing the activity has to comply. So you are, for the most part, regulatory and or advisory boards and commissions, and historic districts, same thing. That's another regulatory commission. So there's a balance, but that's part of checks and balances of government. Is what I think.
I don't think the secretary is supposed to tell her ad, but I know from being the public works secretary and Wetlands Commission, Water Control Commission, Public Building Commission secretaries, that the community / senior center is really big topic in the community right now. And the seniors are really looking for resolution on that. And the Parks and Rec Department, they're looking for some resolution on land acquisition, the building size, you know, making it happen, and why can't they get anything off the ground? And so I feel like that's something that is going to affect everybody, and that we should make that a topic to help address coming up.
It was mentioned, it was mentioned at, I believe, the last council meeting lightly that, you know, this is a topic that we need to bring up again and start looking at again in 2024. So where that's going to go, they're going to put another commission together or whatnot, I'm not sure. But it is something that they bring up that, you know, is something to look at and get going again as far as what anything is going to be done. I think the other thing about the plan of conservation too, another way to look at it is you know, it's a guideline for the town and what we want to do in the town. But it's also something that, say a project comes up somewhere and, you know, it's in an area, you know, that's maybe referenced in the POCD. You know, it's something that can be used to say whether or not, you know what, yeah, it'd be a great project, but you know what, our plan of conservation and development says that we have scenic areas, we have vistas, we have this that we, as a town, do not want to develop or something like that. I think that's something to remember too, as we're making and looking at different decisions within our own commissions and committees. You know, it's kind of a, yes, here's some things we have to act on, but hey, here's some other things that we as a town want to preserve. So I think that it's, you know, it's a guide in that way as well. Anyone else?
I think that, you know, again, the implementation plan, the status report, hopefully, you know, let us know if you have, you know, at the next meeting, what you think of it, but kind of, I think it allows, hopefully allows this commission to, you know, this committee to have like a big picture view of the things that are going on. And, you know, one of the things, you know, we talk about priorities and, you know, I mentioned before, you know, if you think as a member that there's things that, you know, we're not acting on quickly enough, or you want to raise the bar on a little bit, you know, you can let us know. But another thing I think about is like priorities and opportunities. Because again, we've got, if you know, if we have a project in the plan that might not be the #1 priority, but we have an opportunity to get a state grant that's going to fund, you know, 80% or whatever of the project, then it goes to the top of the list, and you know, and we go after it, right? So it's kind of that combination, you know, that comes into play. We can, you know, we can look at everything in the plan and judge whether this is something we ought to be going after in a grant sense, right? So we just, for example, we just got $780,000 for our sidewalk extensions. You know, I think it's a great project. Might not have been our #1 project, but the state is funding, you know, 100% of the construction costs. So, you know, we went for it because part of one of our goals is to expand the sidewalk network. So just an example.
Do we know, Jim, which sidewalks were earmarked, or has that been decided yet?
Yes, no, it's in the application, so we do know. And so I may not get them all off the top of my head, but we're, you know, a lot of this is like extending sidewalks, let's say from Kensington Center, the train station, and connecting into public facilities like schools and out into open space areas to neighborhoods that already have sidewalks. So projects, you know, Four Rod Road, there's a missing piece of sidewalk, you know, north of Norton Road. So that's one piece of it. There's a piece of sidewalk on Kensington Road that goes out to Steeple View. There's a piece of sidewalk on Norton Road that's in the vicinity of what it's, you know, Altart Chamberlain Highway. There's a missing piece of sidewalk on Percival Avenue that will connect from where the sidewalk ends to the Percival field area.
Okay.
And there's a little piece on Robbins Road across from Town Hall Drive there that, you know, again, connects into all those neighborhoods, but there's a missing piece. So a lot of what we try to do is extend the sidewalks, and we also want to kind of fill these missing, you know, missing pieces so that people can walk continuously, safely on a sidewalk network in the community. So those are, I might not have gotten them all, but those are several of the sidewalk pieces that will be funded with this grant.
That was pretty good off the top of your head.
He spends a lot of hours in those.
You know, the other thing is,
applications, he spends a lot of time on.
do we know what's going on with the senior housing, the Knights of Columbus project? I know that was in the wind, it was almost, and then it wasn't. Has that been abandoned?
Well, I can tell you that the option has expired at this point. Okay. But I think it will come back to the council at some point. They haven't taken any, you know, action, let's say affirmative action to rescind, but certainly discussion about, you know, the need to move forward with that And also that brings to mind that, we were talking about the affordable housing earlier, and one of the recommendations, there's a set of recommendations on zoning changes that will, create some additional affordable housing opportunities or do things like Joan said is, extending affordability requirements beyond 40 years, things like that. And the town council has approved, at the suggestion of planning and zoning, that we retain FHI, our consultants, to help the planning and zoning commission to draft and move forward with those specific recommendations that are in the plan of conservation and development implementation plan. So that is just getting started now. So again, there's a lot. I think if you look at that status report, there are a lot of things happening. And another thing we're working on, and I don't know if we're handed it out tonight, but we're working on kind of a list of all the capital projects starting kind of, this fiscal year more or less. And, we want to show you which projects are being funded, how they're being funded. And, any of these projects that we have in the POCD that require funding, they compete with all the other projects that require funding. So this will give you maybe a broad overview of what's being funded, how it's being funded, at what level it's being funded. So you can, you have a sense of how that whole capital piece is tying into implementation.
So I just brought that up on the screen. You can't see the whole thing at once because of the size of my screen, but this is a list. It can be shared if that's desired.
Was that included in the
I don't think this was in the email. I think this one was right, Jim. We decided this one was not included in the email, I think.
Yeah, we're still working on it, but and it'll be a work in process a little bit, but I think even at this level, we can share with you certainly before the next meeting or after this meeting, so you can take a look at it.
Get a rough idea?
A lot of the documents we have are ones that are being worked on, so and do we print them or do we share them and then finish them up before they actually get
Just make sure there's a nice banner on across the page.
draft? Yeah,
Yeah.
and I usually as well. You're right.
Okay. Anything else that's burning at this time?
Oh, that's good. I don't care about it.
Lori, do you have anything else from staff?
I don't think so. I think the big thing is, getting, this is really, my goal anyway, was this being a kickoff meeting, kind of putting everybody in a frame of mind to, know how the plan was put together so that you're not just getting handed this this thick book and going, oh, what am I supposed to do with this?
What did I sign
And
up for?
instead explain, how it came to fruition, where it is, bring it back to your boards and commissions so that it can be shared. It's a living document that we can doesn't sit on a shelf. Jim said it. The worst thing for a plan of conservation and development for any community is to have it sit on a shelf and in 10 years somebody go, oh, look, we gotta dust this off and mandated to update it. Keep the town watching to achieve the goals and balance them with the goals of another part of the community.
Sometimes I guess, it's brought up. Sometimes you're surprised at what is able to get pushed along or move along. Very other things. We had a implementation committee for the Athabasca watershed.
See, I didn't know.
Back a while ago, and a number of things happened out of that. And some of the things that we didn't really expect to happen ended up having some money that was available. So
somewhere along the line, I ended up participating in Save the Sound stuff.
Save the sound?
Yeah.
Actually, it's a good organization.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's based on the biggest thing, contaminating the sound is raw.
from the Connecticut River.
No, from our neighborhoods and everything else you're seeing the sound, like starting up in our neighborhoods and Bassett or Farmington Evans, then going down into Middletown and going down to Connecticut to get to the town.
No fertilizer along there.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't. Costs
So I
too
use
much.
chemical on your.
We actually got funding from the Long Island Sound Project to do toward the Railroad Pond Dam fishway that was added to the dam and such back a few years ago. I can tell you just to mention a couple of things that are like on the radar now in terms of grants that are coming up. One is aquatic invasive species grant that we expect to come out, and we've had a number of contacts from residents in the areas of Silver Lake that are, concerned about the weeds at the lake. And through the chair of Parks and Recreation, actually, Donna passed along some of those comments, and we're looking at possibly submitting an application for Silver Lake in that program. And then another one is recreational trails grants that we've applied for and received in the past. But last year we worked with Middletown. We applied for a grant that would have involved improvements to like Pistol Creek and the Mattabessa Trail in the Lamentation Mountain area. We didn't quite make it last time, but we're looking at submitting a new application for that program. So those are a couple of grants that are kind of coming up soon.
Out of curiosity, the aquatic invasive things.
Milfoil.
Invasive.
One that they have.
What's happening with that? I mean, I don't know anything about it. I'm
If you don't, milfoil is probably one of the most invasive plants that's hitting our country right now. And it's going all over. It started in Chesapeake Bay and it's all over the country right now. But milfoil, the problem with milfoil and that dredging project that we did down here years ago, milfoil fragments. If you take a length of milfoil this big and cut it in 1/2-inch increments, you're going to have a plant for every one of their pieces of it. Every one of those. So every piece that's floating around the lake is going to eventually cause a problem.
Is it like
spending all that money to dredge Silver Lake, to me, was 100% waste of the money because they didn't do it.
And that was what, like 35 years ago or something?
I feel it's like 15 now.
Yeah, no. The gentleman for Deep is still employed there. I've talked to him about it. Chuck Lee.
I know Chuck very well.
I've been involved with the lakes.
I formed the Lake Association back in 1997 at Lake Williams.
Okay, so you're part of that one that I joined.
And I was a chairman. I was commissioner on the Connecticut Federation. Is that who you're involved with right now?
I haven't had the dancing going to the hospital. Yeah, but I've interacted and I live on Silver Lake, right across the street from it. It wasn't as good. They didn't have funding.
They didn't have enough money to do it all.
They ended up doing section 1, 2, 3, and 5. Because they didn't have the money for 4. They thought they were going to take the dredging and sell it. Even Mark Laviana got involved with it when he was with Sunny Water and Alive, God rest his soul. They couldn't make any money. The dredging ended up draining into those ponds that are there. And they got put up onto Hartford in the landfill that's now just north of Hartford on the right side. And then they had to wait to refund it again. So it was a 2-year or 3-year hiatus.
But the biggest problem with that plant, the biggest problem with milfoil is milfoil will go from an aquatic plant to a land-based plant. And then back to an aquatic plant after it goes back to the water.
And it sticks to your boat, so every one of the lakes, whatever you're involved with.
Our association's the one that started the one that
you gotta rinse that stuff. You gotta rinse
that law to rinse the lakes up.
Whether it's fishing boats or kayaks.
Just a seed or something, or
it's the weed itself. It's like I don't know. I'm not familiar with some of the plants you put it in water and they without ever root or re-root. Same thing with tentacles that stick up. Same thing with milfoil. And we have milfoil. We have called, I forget variable,
You can see it on the
I
close.
believe it's variable Eurasian or something like that.
Eurasian, yeah.
Well, we got
Eurasian.
trails too, you got them not only in the water with the milfoil, but we have trailheads for the Appalachian Trail where the feet come by. And they bring it up from like Georgia or something like that, so we have invasive species in all the trails that are involved and also in the water.
What other weeds are in some of the ponds there? I know it's not just milfoil, the fanwort.
There's well, another invasive is water chestnut
Water chestnut, we have water chestnut?
in there, yeah. And then we just actually after we had the complaints and we knew that the grant round is going to be coming up pretty soon, so we have to kind of prepare ourselves. So Public Grounds had Water Plus Wetlands do an initial study to see what's going on and to kind of scope out the costs and stuff. And so they identified, water chestnut and milfoil, and then there's a number of the species that are not invasive. Let's say they're natural species in our area, but they're just overgrown there too, so it compounds the weed problem. So they've come up with a recommendation for how we would treat it. We'll be talking, Sandra, at the council meeting. I mean, if we get to that point, if they do RFP, one of the issues here is it's requires a match. I think it's 25%. And Silver Lake, of course, is a state-owned lake. So we'd like to think that they would take care of it themselves, but maybe they will and maybe they won't. I guess they won't. So, we'll have to make a decision as to whether we're going to pursue it. But it's, like I said, it's on the radar. We've done some investigations and we've done water chestnut, for example. We do the treatment at Paper Goods Pond, Railroad Pond, I believe at Veterans Park too. Because we had a problem there that was quite a big problem a couple of years ago. So we've started treatments in those areas for water chestnut and a few other things.
Here one with all the different treatments. The ones that water chestnut is that's taken care of.
The ones that ever pushed is cleaning up.
Hold on. No, I can't understand. So, Guy, I'm sorry.
No, it's something that's really got to be discussed about treating for some of these, because you've got the watershed, you got Belcher Brook out of that.
There's a lot of
There are different ways to treat. Water chestnut certainly is more typically treated by just a handful. But yeah, I mean, all those were in Silver Lake before the dredging anyway.
You gotta catch 22 with water chestnut if it's mixed up with milfoil. All you're doing is spraying the milfoil.
But yeah, I did all the monitoring for Silver Lake dredging project.
Why did they ever think of chemically treating that way?
No, because milfoil typically is difficult to treat.
Okay, well,
and the dredging project didn't get deep enough and can't get deep enough because milfoil is limited by depth. How much?
Yeah, well, you'd have to get seriously deep or something.
Yeah,
it would have to get as deep that the sun can't penetrate the water. So
And that lake has never been that deep.
okay,
No. So I've lived on it most.
chemically treating that lake with the money that was funding that lake, you could be treating that for the next 50 years and still not touching the water.
Okay, so Jen, you have some good resources for history when you're ready to go there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I guess that's it. So
I guess one of the big things is, does anybody have any other questions? I just want to make sure that.
Read,
comes up at the
interpret it, and
beginning.
bring back questions next time. And
Okay.
answers.
And can I just confirm that we're gonna be meeting at 6 p.m. on these dates?
Oh, that's
Good.
good.
Well,
That didn't even come up. Oh my
Wow,
goodness.
that's
Yeah.
I'm just making assumptions that that's when we started tonight, but I didn't want to assume.
6 p.m. This is on Thursday. Yeah.
If that works for
I'll add that to the motion. Like,
Yeah.
all along.
all in one deal, okay?
Yeah. As amended.
All right, so if there's nothing else, I mean, our next meeting, just to reconfirm, is the 25th of January, this room, at 6 p.m. And
I'll just
hopefully
watch your emails in case we get out for budget meetings or something else that happens, but.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll do our best to have it in town hall regardless, if you
Yeah.
have signage and communication. But I'll schedule them for this room.
Okay, so with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, thank you, John. Who said the second? All right. There's so many. And the time is 7:31. And all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.
Happy holidays.
And Mary.
All right. Good night.
The most heavily used part.